Hello and good morning on one of the last days of July here in 2025, July 30th today. I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games. I'm happy to be here to spend the next hour with you to talk about games and Gen Con and movies and anything that you want to talk about. I also have a few questions that I might throw out to you during this live cast. I guess I'll start out with a quick Vantage shipping update if you're still wondering about that. At this point, fulfillment centers are almost to the point, or most fulfillment centers are to the point where they're just shipping like daily orders every couple of days. So if you placed an order on Monday, it'll probably ship within a few days. In the US, they are wrapping up the launch orders for non-champions today and tomorrow. So we anticipated it would take all the way through July, and that did come true. We're always hoping they'll finish it a little bit faster, but it was a lot of orders. Many of the orders included multiple items, and we were kind of revising the packaging methods along the way to try to cut down on the number of dings and dents to boxes, because it is a pretty heavy game. So thank you for your patience if you are not a champion, or if you were a champion and you needed to be patient for Vantage. I really appreciate that. And I hope it does not, if you had to wait a few weeks, I hope it does not deter your excitement when you get Vantage to the table. I've really, really enjoyed hearing people's stories and seeing people's photos and questions about Vantage. It really, after working on the game for 8 years, it is incredibly fulfilling for me to see people actually playing it and talking about it. That really does mean a lot to me. So thank you for doing that. I see in the comments here, let's see, Dominic says that they just got their shipping notification. Melissa says, happy Gen Con day. Garrett says, I saw your glowing review for F4. Oh, Fantastic Four. I was like, I was thinking F1 for a second there. I haven't actually seen F1. Garrett says, would you say it's okay to see if we haven't seen the last few Marvel Cinematic Universe movies? Garrett, I didn't mention that in the review, but I would actually say it works fantastically out of the context of any other Marvel movie. It's actually a great starting point for someone who wants to get into Marvel or get maybe back into a Marvel movie. I say that as someone who I think has seen pretty much every Marvel movie, but it stands by itself. And it is set in another world, another version of Earth, even though it isn't a multiverse movie. Like, it isn't about the multiverse. It's just on another planet or another version of Earth. It has nothing to do with anything else that's happened in the cinematic universe. It is, yeah, I would say yes. And really, I'm putting it in the title here because I think it might be my favorite movie of the year. I think it might be one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. I don't know. I came out of the theater after watching Fantastic Four with the biggest smile on my face because of how good it was. I mean, and maybe not just how good it was, how much it connected with me personally. It was just every little beat in the movie was perfect for me. I thought it was funny in ways that the types of humor that I really want to see in movies. There was another movie I saw recently that had really, in my opinion, really sophomoric humor, which I like sometimes, but not on repeat every 5 minutes in the movie. The humor in this movie was really funny, had really powerful, strong emotions, great characters, great big memorable moments in the movie, tough choices and interesting solutions for those difficult problems and choices. It was fantastic. It really, really was everything that I want from a movie and everything that I want from a superhero movie. And I would highly recommend, if you get the chance, to go see it in the theater. Yeah, full endorsement from me, Fantastic Four. I really, really loved it. Julie says, I'm sorry, I didn't show Garrett's question on the screen. I'll start doing that. Julie says, when you were designing Vantage, how did you keep track of the numerous interactions between cards? What challenges did you experience with this? Julie, that was it was pretty difficult, and there was probably a better way for me to do it, but I used a lot of spreadsheets. I used a lot of Google Sheets in particular, and I have one sheet that I've used quite a bit, and it's actually been helpful when people have said, hey, did you mean for this storybook entry to have me get this card? And I can reference this spreadsheet that I have, but it's a spreadsheet that shows every single card that you can gain in the game. So it's a little over 900 cards, non-location cards. And the spreadsheet shows where the different places, usually there's more than one place where you can gain each card. And then sometimes cards have outputs, like you can craft something into something else, or learn from something and craft and gain something else. And so I have outputs too, like if this card can output another card, I have that on this giant spreadsheet as well. I even have like for different quests, say in the game, I have where you different places where you can gain the quest. Often it's maybe one place, maybe two places, and then where the quest, if there is a destination, the location where you should end up on that quest. So a very, very big spreadsheet where I can look at all this information. And even that spreadsheet has a bunch of tabs that show the grid for the world, where things are located in the world. Yeah, so big spreadsheet, Julie. But I'm curious, actually, that's a fun question. If you, Julie, or anyone else were designing a game like Vantage and you had a lot of interconnected elements to track like that, how would you have done it? Is there maybe a more effective way of doing that other than a spreadsheet? Ryan says, I've been following the Vantage forums on Board Game Geek and have seen a flurry of rules questions on a daily basis. Are you surprised by the amount of rules questions, or are you expecting that? Ryan, that's a good question. I guess partially when I release a game, my hope is that the rules will completely stand on their own. But for the most part, I haven't seen that many questions about the rules themselves, the rules specifically. I think the rule book works pretty well as intended. It's more about specific cards where people say, how does this card work? And often, I think the explanation for that card is either in the rule book or it's in the glossary, which is contained within the game. So I'm still satisfied with the stuff that I wrote for the game, the glossary, the rule book that I wrote for the game, and the oversight process of a bunch of people who were overviewing that. But I would say most importantly, I'm glad people feel comfortable asking. Like I love when people maybe reference the rule book or the rule pop, which is available. That's great if you want to do that. But I want people to feel comfortable asking about stuff that they're caught up on, especially in Vantage. I would recommend, if you do have a question, I would recommend not getting caught up on anything during the game itself. Just go with the flow, make the most fun thematic decision as you're playing. And then at the end of the game, pop online, pop on the Facebook group or the FAQ on our website or on Board Game Geek and ask the question about a specific card. I would much rather you ask and get the correct answer than be confused or play incorrectly for a long time. So I'm glad people feel comfortable doing that. Nicholas says, I'm guessing Nicholas is from the Netherlands, says, I will forever be grateful for you teaching my friends and I the word. Oh, no, Nicholas has learned a word, the word huppelidup. Words cannot express my gratitude. Thanks, Nicholas. There's a certain type of card that appears in a number of different iterations in the game, and I tried to use a few different languages. And one of the languages I used, the list that I referenced gave me a word that I should not have put in the game. It's not that one. It's a different word. We'll see if you find it. I see some very kind comments about Vantage. I'm not skipping over your comments. I am reading them, and I really do appreciate it. It means so much to me that Vantage, for any of our games, but Vantage in particular, because I worked on it for so long in the hopes that it would bring joy to your tabletop. I'm glad that people are connecting with it. Also, Miles comments. Miles got to see Fantastic Four too. He says, I haven't seen many previous Marvel movies and didn't feel like I was missing anything. It's a really, I hadn't thought about that, but I'm glad you had that experience, Miles, and I completely agree. Jeff said the same thing. I love that Fantastic Four didn't require any Marvel homework. It was a great standalone movie. Chad says, which Fantastic Four member power would you want? You know, growing up, I read comic books. I collected comic book cards when I was young. And I think in general, I thought that Mr. Fantastic had the coolest power. Reed Richards, he could stretch really far. The movie kind of shows that his power is maybe the most limiting of the four powers in the movie. And I do have a fascination with being able to fly of my own accord. And so the Human Torch being able to fly at whim is pretty cool. So I'd probably go with the Human Torch's power. Let's see, just scrolling through asking for questions here. Let's see the other topics I have today. Gen Con. Let's talk about Gen Con for a minute. And I should mention today is a newsletter day. So if you're looking for the newsletter, it is linked on the news page of our website. I also have it on my other screen here. So we have Gen Con. So I don't plan on being at Gen Con, but Stonemaier Games is very much at Gen Con. We have a really big booth that we share with our vendor partner at Gen Con, MeepleSource. MeepleSource has been an incredible partner for us at Gen Con for a long time. And it's our booth. We share the booth together. So the booth is 2909. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit so you can see this a little bit better. There we go. 2909. Also, there is looks like Elizabeth Hargrave is the is a Gen Con guest of honor this year, which is very cool. Congratulations to Elizabeth for that. And Elizabeth and FinSpan designers David and Michael are doing a Span panel. I guess they're missing the Connie part of it. I don't think Connie will be there. She designed Wormspan, but you can join that panel on Sunday afternoon to hear their thoughts about the game. We have a bunch of different products at Gen Con. Vantage, FinSpan, Wormspan, Wingspan, other games, other products too. There's a link in the newsletter right here where you can see the products that we will have at Gen Con in case you are waiting to get a product there. Yeah, so that's very exciting. Newsletter goes into Vantage a little bit, just giving you some tips and things about getting Vantage, or if you haven't gotten Vantage, it's still available on our web store. And we're now only a few weeks away from the retail release. So you can get it at Gen Con if you're attending. The local retail release is on August 15th, and the online retail release is on August 29th. That includes Amazon. A few people have asked about Amazon. Any other updates here? Oh yeah, kind of next month, our next World of Wingspan newsletter will feature the full reveal of Wormspan Dragon Academy. So I'm still not talking about Dragon Academy yet, but I'm letting you know in about a month, we are going to reveal the Wormspan expansion. And it is, I think Connie did some really, really cool, clever things with this expansion. Yeah, so I'm very excited to share that with you in about a month. Also have kind of the standard update stuff, including Wingspan Asia Digital now available, apiaries on Board Game Arena, and project status updates, things like this in the newsletter. If you have any questions about anything that you see in the newsletter, please let me know in the comments. I'm happy to answer. Let's see. Ian says, Ian has a question about Wormspan Dragon Academy. He says it's shipping to your fulfillment centers. That's right. It is in the process of freight shipping right now. When will it be available for sale? We are aiming for mid-September. Of course, a lot of things can happen during the shipping process. We're keeping an eye on that, but that is what we're aiming for right now. That's our web store launch. Garrett's very kind to ask about Walter. Yeah, my cat Walter, who does make an appearance in location 000 in Vantage, the first location. Walter is doing well. He had a wonderful romp this morning. I'm looking back around because he was running back and forth. He had the zoomies this morning, and now he is all tired out and will probably be napping for the next few hours. So he is doing well. Still very hot in St. Louis, but we're going to get a little break from the heat for a few days, and I'm sure he'll spend some time on the patio. Oh, Nicole mentions the, I just covered the shirt, but the stamp swap shirt, themed shirt that I'm wearing. Nicole says that they wore the exact shirt to their local game cafe last night for a 5-player FinSpan game. I handled the teach and everyone had a blast. Thank you so much for doing that, Nicole. That is so generous of you to share your time teaching a game at a local game store on many levels. So yeah, thank you so much for doing that and for proudly wearing the Stonemaier Stamp Swap Champion shirt from last year. We are coming up somewhat soon. I don't know exactly when we're going to be selling it, but it's September, October, I think. We'll have the champion hoodie for this year, which is a green hoodie. So if you have it's the same material, same composition, really nice, soft, fuzzy. It's light, so you can wear it at different times throughout the year, but it does keep you warm. The hoodie that we released earlier this year for ambassadors, we also have a champion hoodie coming out later this year. And I think that the ambassador hoodie it's on our web store. Anyone can buy it, not just ambassadors. Let's see. I continue to see comments on Vantage. I'm glancing over them, but I'm looking for questions just in case. So if you have any questions, Paul mentioned maybe a mistake that a few people have made, actually. So I'll highlight it. Paul says that he was using the Move book instead of the Depart book. And they are two different books. They both use the Move skill, but in Vantage, there is a Move book that you'll use to interact with the locations using the Move skill. But once you decide to depart away from a location, that's when you use the Depart book. There are two different blue books in the game, somewhat confusingly, but they both do use the blue Move skill. So yeah, make sure you're using the two different storybooks. I'd say one other common thing, it's slightly surprising, but I think it comes from people playing other games where you need to do this. But Vantage has a lot of freedom. Like there's nothing stopping you from choosing any action on a turn other than you can't choose more than one location action per game. But one thing that people seem to be doing, a few people have done, is that they think that they need a skill token to perform an action. Like you need a purple, people think that you need a purple skill token to take a purple action. You don't. You can take a purple action whenever you want. skill tokens, the primary purpose for skill tokens is to reduce the cost of that action. But you can always perform any action within the constraints of the rules beyond what I just said. And skill tokens just help you decrease the cost. Julie says she loves spreadsheets and uses them all the time, so I would probably create one too with the ability to sort many ways. Yeah, multiple sorting could help, multiple ways to filter and whatnot. A schematic would probably look overwhelming, but cool. Yeah, given the number of cards and interconnected elements, and Julie, that actually ties a little bit into why there won't be any expansions for Vantage. Everything is so interconnected in the game. All the cards, all the storybooks, you can't plug something else into the game. The way I think about it, or if someone asks for expansions for Vantage, the way I think about it is it's essentially like I designed a game with 15 different expansions, all different biomes and elements of the world, all built into the core game. So all the expansions are already in the game, even though they weren't really designed as expansions, but that's a way to think about it for those who are asking for expansions for the game. I think that comes from a place of, of appreciating the game, which I do appreciate as well. Tony says, do you feel the card actions on the mission card are crucial to do in every play in order to understand the mission goals? I do not. No, I think they're helpful, but I don't think they're crucial to use. And the mission it's your kind of decision to decide the mission is important. It isn't necessarily important if it isn't important to you. But if you decide the mission is important to you and you're struggling to achieve what it's asking you to achieve, the mission the actions printed on the mission are absolutely there for you to use. Please don't. I think in the rulebook, the original rulebook, I kind of cautioned people against using them because I didn't want people to just use them too soon. But I probably shouldn't have done that because I think they can be really helpful for anyone who is maybe struggling a little bit with understanding the mission, or if they just simply want to speed up the game. Taking the actions printed on the mission card can definitely do that. Mark says, is there a crowdfunding project on my radar right now? Good question, Mark. Let's see if I am currently backing anything. So it looks like Cats versus Cucumbers and Beach Day both recently ended and funded. I was backing them. I was also backing Gambit, which they're going to reboot. They're going to revisit it a little bit. I think that they had to adjust a few things, but I was backing that, and I will back it again when they come back and make it again in the future and reboot it. Yeah. What about you, Mark, or anyone watching this? Are you excited about any crowdfunding projects right now, or just excited to play Vantage? That's okay too, and it's there for you to actually play. Your inner child says a couple of reviewers like Vantage, but think of it as a solo game. That's fine. It does play one player as well as 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players. And would not play with more than 2. Any advice for them to get 6 players in epic victory under 2 hours? I would say I don't know if I have any advice specifically for that goal, and it's okay to find your ideal player count for Vantage, but I designed it from the ground up as a cooperative game where you are mechanically helping other players and staying active and listening when it's not your turn. And also just the amount of communication, collaboration, and listening that you can do in the game that you can learn from what other players are seeing and doing. That's the type of cooperation I love in games. So you can either embrace that cooperation or just play it as a 1 to 2 player game. That's okay too. Vantage is about your journey. So whatever makes it work for your journey is totally fine with me. Susanna says, my coworker Susanna, I had fun visiting board game stores on our trip and hearing about their excitement for the Vantage release. She mentions Hitherto Coffee and Gaming Parlor in Greenfield, Indiana is having a release day event. Oh, that's awesome, Susanna. Susanna is our wonderful, among other things, our wonderful retail relationship coordinator. So it's really neat that you're able to stop and hear from some retailers during the journey. Yeah, that's wonderful, Susanna. James says, how did you determine the numbers for the first print run of Vantage, which was 50,000 copies? Was it more based on the timing of the game being sent out, or was it more when each person purchased the game? The numbers. Oh, James, I think you're referring to the individually printed numbers on the box. Is that what you're saying? It's just completely random. Yeah, it's completely random. There's these games are, they're packaged into cartons, and fulfillment centers are just pulling them out of cartons and putting them into proper packaging to send them to people. Yeah, it's just random. Tiny Tactician says, I wonder if you could do a day in the life video. I wonder how you manage your time running a company, developing and designing games, doing YouTube. I'd implode. It is a lot of different things, but I tend to compartmentalize. Like I do certain things on Tuesday, certain things on Wednesday, certain things on Thursday, Friday. I do have an article about this that can tell you all about it. If you search Stonemaier Games for a work day in the life of Jamey Stonemaier, or even just a few of those words, you will see a breakdown of what my average day looks like. In general, it involves 4 hours in the morning of, I would say, kind of reacting to things like answering comments, answering emails. Sometimes I'll do some content creation. I'll write my blog posts. I'll film videos, things like that. Then after lunch, I usually work from noon to 6, doing project management stuff, development stuff, usually not game design at that point. Sometimes I'll do some playtesting during that time. But a lot of it is project management, I would say, is the core of that time. And then in the evening from 8 to 10, that is usually my creative time. I really try to designate that time towards creative time. Or when a game releases like Vantage and people still have a lot of questions, I spend that time answering questions as well. But yeah, that's my typical breakdown of pretty much every day of the week. Sometimes it varies based on whether or not I'm going to a game night in the evening or if I have stuff to do during the day on a Saturday or Sunday. But that is generally what my day looks like 7 days a week. I continue to see very kind comments about Vantage. I really appreciate that. I'm glad people are enjoying it. Chad says, because Vantage is complete, if there is a huge demand, would you be open to using the same game mechanisms to make another open world game, or on a moon or another planet, or was Vantage too high costly? It's a totally fair question, Chad. Right now, I'm trying really hard. So I've seen some questions about this, about what's next for Vantage, what's next using the mechanisms, the world, also all that type of thing. And I really appreciate that passion. I'm really trying to just, especially after working on this game for 8 years, I'm just trying to enjoy what exists right now and be present in the moment and enjoy that moment. And I'm hoping that moment, as I say that term, kind of lasts a while, that people continue to enjoy Vantage for a while, and that we can continue just to talk about what already exists rather than what could exist, because there's a lot of stuff in Vantage for people to find and explore and go on adventures for. So maybe someday, I think I appreciate the question. I'm generally happy to answer questions like that, but right now in particular, given how long I spent on the game, just trying to be in the moment and enjoy the moment and be in the moment with you and those of you who are playing Vantage. Let's see. Julie says, what made you decide to include both mission and destiny cards in Vantage? Julie, I can't remember everything about the design process for those cards in particular, but I knew at one point that I wanted to explain why players were going to the planet in the first place. And so I looked at a bunch of different reasons why if you learn about a new planet, that when there's a signal coming from that planet, why might you go to that planet? And there are a lot of different reasons. There are 21 different reasons that you might go to that planet. And then in Vantage, you crash on that planet. And I think I knew that very early on, that you were going to crash on this planet. You were going to crash far away from the other players. But I realized that after you crash on a planet, even if your survival needs are taken care of, because Vantage is not a survival game, after you unexpectedly crash on a planet, the mission might not be all that important anymore. Maybe it is. You can make it important if you want to, but you now have this unexpected thing that happened. What are you going to do with that? Like, what becomes your final destination after something like that, unexpected like that, happens? Are you going to try to escape the planet? Are you going to try to find a way home? Or are you going to try to maybe make this planet your home? Is this your new home? And so I wanted to explore that concept of the dichotomy between why you came to this planet in the first place and how you want to end your journey based on this unexpected event of crashing on the planet. Garrett says, how closely do you monitor the BGG ratings for Vantage? Are you refreshing the ratings page every couple of hours like me? So in general, Garrett, I try really hard not to look at the ratings for our games, especially if it's a game that I designed. If it's a game, sometimes I look at games like like Wormspan. I've checked Wormspan a few times recently, game not designed by me, a game that I worked on, but not designed by me, because it's kind of getting a little bit closer to the top 100. And that's kind of a fun threshold to reach when it reaches the top 100 on Board Game Geek. I don't know if it'll get there, but it seems to have a pretty good chance of doing that if people who have played it continue to rate it. I am often curious when a new game releases, though, how are people receiving it? Is it bringing people joy? There are many ways to look at that metric, but one of them is to look at the BGG rating system. I have looked at it a few times for Vantage. The main thing, and I've been delighted that a lot of people seem to be enjoying it and rating it accordingly. That means a lot to me. Like I want the game to bring people joy. That is one way for me to look at it. I would say that the number that I'm more curious about slightly when I look at the ratings, and I kind of wish I could just look at this number and not look at the rating, is how many people, the number of people who have rated it, because that is a signal to me of how many people are actually playing Vantage. And that's the most important thing. Well, other than the joy, we have a new game. Like I'm excited for people to play it, and I hope they feel welcome to get to the table, and I hope it's fairly easy for them to get to the table. So the rating, the quantity of ratings is maybe the thing that I'm the most curious about right now. LB Jeeper says, did any ideas come to you while making Vantage that built off of Vantage the way Wormspan and Finspan built off of Wingspan? While making it that build off of, oh, I see. So like ideas for maybe for things that I didn't end up putting in Vantage that maybe I realized, oh, I like this idea, but it doesn't belong in Vantage. I want to put this in another game. You know, Vantage was such a big playground that off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that I thought of for Vantage that I thought belonged in the game, that I thought was fun, that I didn't actually put in the game. There's a lot of different things in the game. A lot of different layers of spoilers, a lot of different levels to the game. So off the top of my head, no. Probably, I mean, there are things that throughout the 8-year design process, probably there are things that I thought of that ended up influencing other games along the way, but none that come to mind off the top of my head. Tiny Tactician says, what's a game you love but doesn't get much attention? Mine is Orichalcum. Orichalcum. That is a fun question. Anyone is welcome to answer this question. Let's see. I'll look at my shelf over here to look at a game that I love that isn't getting much attention. I mean, actually, one that comes to mind quite often when I think about this question is the game Rumble Nation, which has recently gotten more attention because it got a nice, beautiful second edition, I guess you'd call it. It's essentially the same game. It just looks a little bit different. But Rumble Nation is one that I think of when I think of this question quite a bit. Welder's World says, any hints on what's next? So what's next for Stonemaier Games? I guess in the immediate future is Gen Con. We're attending Gen Con. As for the next product release, it's still kind of Vantage. Vantage will be available at Gen Con. It'll be available from local stores in mid-August and then from online stores in late August. Jeff says, vertical or horizontal shelving for games? He says, I was vertical, but after the Planet Unknown tile explosion, I've now shifted all to horizontal. I generally use vertical. There are a few games where I avoid vertical, but yeah, for the most part, I use vertical. Let's see. Monkey Butler Lab says, per the rules, departing to a numbered location is a move action with no storybook entry. Yet elsewhere it states you may be able to move in non-cardinal directions if stated in the book. How? I'm trying to think of a situation where it might be stated in the book. In non-cardinal directions. I think what this is referring to is that there are certain times where you'll say, I want to move north. And so you look in the depart storybook for the north entry. And as you're looking at it, it might also say, so there's a entry for moving north, but there's also maybe an entry for moving northeast. And that, because you said the word north and north is in the word northeast, those are two options for you to choose when moving north. So that is what I'm referring to in the rulebook. As for your other question here about departing to a numbered location, when you depart to a numbered location, you don't look at the depart storybook. You just say, I'm moving to 739, which is to the west. That is that it's still an action. It takes your turn, and you'll roll one die and one challenge die and perform that action. Michael says, what's the inspiration of the serial number printed on the box of your games? I'm guessing the White Album, the Beatles. It isn't the White Album. I didn't know that the White Album was individually numbered. it's something that we started doing a while back. I think I don't even know the first game where we individually numbered it. I think it's I honestly don't know the inspiration. I probably saw it on a game somewhere and thought it was cool, and so I asked Panda if we could do it cost effectively for at least the first printing of games, and they said yes. But I honestly don't remember the original inspiration. Tiny Tactician says, how deep into the hobby were you before you decided I want to design a game? I was around maybe 8 years old when I started designing games. So I would not say I was, I mean, I had played games, but I would say I was not deep into the hobby. I didn't even realize like the hobby was a thing until maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I was just playing games for fun. I would say that was when I discovered Board Game Geek around 15 years ago. And so that's when I was fully aware of the hobby, but I've been playing games my whole life and designing games my whole life. Edward says, how intimidating was manufacturing and logistics for viticulture? Currently working through your blogs, already read the crowdfunding book. Any big tips? I would say pretty intimidating. I would say manufacturing was made significantly less intimidating by Panda. I have worked with Panda, our partner, for the last, I don't know, since 2011. No, 2012 is when I think I first reached out to them. So over 13 years now. And they made it much less overwhelming because they were so wonderful to work with and to communicate with. As for the logistics, I mean, there's the logistics of warehousing, fulfillment, and freight shipping, lots of different levels of logistics. And it took me many years to feel like I had solved that puzzle. And now my coworker Alex is in charge of logistics, and he does a great job at solving that puzzle on a continual basis and continuing to improve it from the original foundation that I kind of laid for many years. It's pretty intimidating, but I think I hope that my blog in particular, I don't think the book goes into it too much, but I hope the blog helps make those logistics a little bit less intimidating. I think the key is to find 4 fulfillment centers that you really trust, that really work well, and then find maybe 1 freight logistics company. I work with Arc Global, who makes it less intimidating as well. And the manufacturer can also help with this. They deal directly with logistics companies and with freight shipping companies. I'm smiling because I'm seeing other nice comments about Vantage. James says, let's say I'm playing with 3 people playing Vantage, and one of my team visits a specific Vantage point, and they complete all the options listed on the card because the card allows it. If I get to that card in the future, can I also complete all the tasks again? Okay, so in general, in Vantage, you can only perform one action per location, one location action per location per game. So, but there are a few locations that say specifically that you can take one of each of these actions. You have to take different actions, but one of each of them. There's a rule in the game that says if someone else finds that location, and really this goes for both types of locations, they can still interact with that location. They can perform actions on that location or inaction in most cases, as long as it doesn't thematically contradict something that you've already done there. So yes, but I think an example of that would be if you go to a shop in Vantage and you buy a very special item and someone else goes to that same shop, thematically, it probably wouldn't make sense if they could buy that same exact item. There are rules in Vantage if someone does acquire a card that someone else already has, but that's a way that you could kind of theme your way through that question a little bit. Ted says, was Apiary a success? Any future expansion content in the works aside from expanding the hive, which I already have? Apiary, I think it has been a pretty big success for us in multiple ways, including it seems to have brought joy to a lot of people based on the reception that I've seen for the game. We've sold quite a number of copies of the game. We had an expansion for the game. I don't think we're pursuing any other expansions because everything fits so nicely in the box right now. We kind of design the expansion to fit into the original game's insert. Now, that wouldn't stop us from designing a new expansion if we thought of a really great idea that we thought could bring joy to a lot of people who already love Apiary. And well, of course, even without that, we'll continue to support Apiary. But I do consider Apiary a success. It's now on Board Game Arena. I would consider it a success. Welder's World says, do boost cubes in Vantage by default transfer to a card that replaces another? Do boost cubes transfer to a card that replaces another? They do not. No. So if by default, no, unless it specifically says that, they do not by default do that. Oh, Garrett says there is a way to see the number of log plays under the stats panel without necessarily seeing maybe the rating for the game. I say that because I don't want to fixate on the rating for any game, even when it's exciting to see a really nice high rating for Vantage. I'd rather, Garrett points out there are 953 total ratings of Vantage so far. I'm excited for people to be playing the game. Yeah, so that's fun to see. Garrett also points out that there are recorded plays of nearly 3,000 plays of Vantage in July so far. I see some other answers to the question about what games don't get much attention but that people love. I see Rallyman GT, Rumble Nation, Star Wars Rebellion. That game does get a lot of love, but I see that what you're saying, Chad, that it doesn't. It's quite a commitment, so it doesn't often get to the table, maybe. Nicole also mentions Orc Holcomb. Jeff will give a shout out to Noon Attack, which I got to play with Jeff at Geekway to the West. I really enjoyed that. The Champion Faction says, now that Vantage has shipped, what are your thoughts about the ongoing tariff situation? Do the tariffs cause as much less same difficulties as expected? Tariff thoughts about the near future. So I am still very much hopeful that the executive branch will not be able to just wield tariffs as a weapon because it is not these countries that the president is threatening tariffs with who are paying the tariffs. It is companies like mine who import products into the US. We are the ones paying the tariffs. And we have spent around $300,000 on tariff taxes. Stonemaier Games paying $300,000 to the government as taxes so far for Vantage and for other products that we imported over the last few months. That $300,000 is a lot of money. That is a big impact on us. And I would say I am more scared than hopeful about what will happen after August 12th, which is that's when the 90-day hold happens. It will end on the president's compromise with China. So I am scared of what will happen after that, because 30% is devastating but manageable. But some of those higher numbers that were just happening kind of willy-nilly back in March, April, were not sustainable at all. So I did get word recently that so our manufacturing partner Panda, they are working with a company in Brazil to kind of diversify their manufacturing process so it's not only just dependent on China, which I think is great. I think that's really smart. They did a lot of work. This wasn't something they ran into. They've done a lot of work vetting this particular manufacturer. And the project manager that I work with quite a bit, Shannon visited this facility recently and spoke very highly of what Shannon saw there. But then for apparently purely political reasons, the president is also threatening tariffs on Brazil as well. So that are even higher than the tariffs on China. So it shows that even trying to explore other options is causing stress and difficulty. I would love for some checks and balances. I'll say it that way. And that's what the lawsuit is for. Vantage says, or Nate says, Vantage has one of the best plastic-free inserts I've seen in a game. Thank you for saying that, Nate. I will say it was inspired by the insert in Sentinels of the Multiverse. I think the new version of that game. Nate says, do you plan on using that kind of future games? There's even room for improvements like lids and tuck boxes. Certainly, yeah. I would say the reason that there's no lids on the little trays, the 3 green trays in Vantage, is because you can't, if there's a lid on it, you can't actually get it out of the box. You can't extract it. I do like cardboard inserts. When they are an option, I would love to explore more cardboard inserts like this in the future. I think they're more eco-friendly and they actually work really well. And they're great, I think, in particular for cards, because cards kind of need sharp corners to not bend. And plastic isn't as good as sharp corners as cardboard is. So yeah, I'm hoping to explore that more in the future as well. Let's see. Tiny Tactician says, "Do you keep up with music at all?" A little bit. I'm going to a Lucy Dacus concert in a few months. I'll shout out to Lucy Dacus. She's great. I don't know about new artists. I try to keep up. The comment says, "I try to keep up to avoid old man status that doesn't get the new sounds of the youth." I will say I don't often listen to music. When I am working out or in the car, I almost always listen to podcasts. I read every night, but I don't use audiobooks all that often unless I'm going on a long road trip. It's pretty rare that I listen to music, even though I like music when it's an option. But I generally work in silence. I prefer to work in silence. So Chad says, last weekend we took Owen, Chad's son, to his first parade. It was at the Munger Potato Festival. He loved how people threw candy from the floats. What was the last parade, fair, or festival that you have been to? It's been a while. I generally don't love crowds, and so it's pretty rare that I will go to a festival. Like in St. Louis, we have a lot of things. There's something called like the Taste of St. Louis, and there are various versions of this. I would say can I count the farmers market? Because that's the one exception. I love the farmers market. It does get a little bit crowded at the farmers market here, and I go to the Tower Grove farmers market here in St. Louis. It does get a little crowded. But I love the vibe of it, because it's kind of spread out across a park. It's rare that it really feels all that crowded, even though there are a lot of people there. I go there every other weekend at least. I really, really love the St. Louis farmers market scene. Blue says, "How about a card pack for APR giving unique seed art to the core game cards so they actually match the expansion better?" So do you know? I don't know if you know the story about this. If you're commenting on this, it's a little odd thing, I would say a mistake, kind of, for Apiary, where the artist, as far as I knew, for the original game Apiary, the artist provided one illustration for all the seeds, and you don't really look at the art for the seed cards all that much. So I was like, okay, I guess that's fine. Yeah, just one illustration for all the seeds. That's fine. And then when we got to the expansion for Apiary, I reached out to the artist. I had a few other requests for the artist to illustrate. This is Quan Chai Maria. And the artist said, Jamey, I've been wondering, just curious, why did you only use one of the illustrations I made for the seed art in Apiary? And I was like, oh, what do you mean? Like internally, I was like, what do you mean? Like I thought there only was one art. And Quantai shared a folder that I didn't realize existed, even though I probably should have been able to find it, a folder that had art for every single seed card in Apiary. And so there was a bunch of different seed art for Apiary. I just didn't know about it. And so we used that art for the expansion, for the new seed cards in the expansion. So I would say about half of the illustrations have already been used. And we probably wouldn't go back just to add more art to cards that are already perfectly fine. We wouldn't do that. But I think your question is worth that story a little bit about why there wasn't unique art on the original seed cards in Apiary. No fault of the artist at all. Totally my fault for missing that there actually was unique art for all of those cards. Let's see. Monkey Butler Lab says, with Asmodee playing Galactus, I think that's a bit harsh. Galactus destroys worlds. I don't think Asmodee does that. They're creating games. We work with Asmodee. They distribute our games in Europe, and we're very grateful for their distribution. Asmodee Canada also ships our games throughout Canada quite efficiently, so we're really happy to work with them there. Do you have any safeties in place to prevent shareholders from deciding if they want Stonemaier to be consumed for a payout? I own 80% of Stonemaier Games, so I listen to our shareholders. I deeply care about their opinions and thoughts, but our shareholders cannot do anything with a company that I had the final authority for decisions like that. So yeah, that's it. And even if that were to happen, not that we're considering it truly, but if the day came someday in the future where I was like, I think we can better serve our customers by remaining an independent studio under the umbrella of another company. If I truly believe we can better serve customers that way, I would at least consider it. I don't think in our current state, I don't think that is the case. But I also don't think it is, I think there's kind of the perception that we would be selling out, or that Asmodee is gobbling up these companies. Hopefully they're doing so hopefully in the end, customers are being better served. If that is not the case, that is a problem. But I don't think it is inherently a bad thing for companies to merge, for companies to be bought by other companies. Sometimes they can thrive in that environment. There are a lot of game designers, in fact, that maybe start companies without realizing that they don't really want to run a company. They just want to design games. And I think for them, it's great that they can work with a company that specializes in or is really good at the logistics and distribution and all that stuff. George says, have I played River of Gold? River of Gold is, yeah, I still haven't played it on the tabletop. I've only played it on Board Game Arena, but I do really enjoy the game. James says, with the tariffs, is the cost associated with retail cost or build cost? The tariff is paid. So when we spend $10 manufacturing a game in China, when the game reaches the US, if we want to bring it into the US, we have to pay the government $3. We have to pay them 30%. So for every $10 that we spent making the game, we have to pay a tariff tax to the US government if we want to bring it from the ship onto the shore in the US of $3. And that may not sound like a lot, but hopefully it actually does sound like a lot, because that is a significant increase to what is essentially the manufacturing cost of the game. And it's just a tax. It's just a US company with 8 employees. I have 7 coworkers. We are paying more taxes, and we already pay a lot of taxes to the U.S. government. But we're paying even more in the form of these tariffs. Christopher says, I know we've at Dark One Games had to stop production for now and focus on development. What direction are you seeing in the industry as a whole? Christopher, thanks for sharing that. I'm sorry if it sounds like that wasn't a choice that you wanted to make. So I'm sorry about that. Really, that sucks. What direction am I seeing? Oh, I'm seeing a lot of different directions in the industry as a whole. I'm seeing some companies buy other companies. Tycoon Games in particular recently, more than Asmodee that I've seen. Tycoon has been buying specific games and bringing them under their umbrella. So I'm seeing a little bit of that. I'm seeing companies maybe focus a little bit more on very specific games that do really well rather than experimenting, which I think is somewhat unfortunate, because I love seeing experimentation in the world of board games. I think we're also seeing maybe a little bit more crowdfunding than working with retailers and distributors, which I personally like a really diverse supply chain for serving customers in different ways, because customers like to buy in different games. Some customers like to buy on crowdfunding or / directly from the publisher. Some that like to buy from their local retailer or from online retailers, or from a localization partner. So I think diversity in the terms of how we get our games out there to the world is really helpful for customers. And so, but I'm seeing maybe a little bit of a contraction of that as companies go into survival mode. Curve Game says, I love hearing Connie Vogelman talk about game design. They're very enthusiastic. Yeah, Connie is. I love the way that Connie thinks about games and talks about games. She was recently on, I'm forgetting the podcast or the YouTube channel. It has Meeple Syrup. She was recently on the Meeple Syrup YouTube channel with a great chat about, I think, about player interaction. And it was great. It's a great listen to if you get the chance to listen or watch that. Let me see. I'm going to finish based on comments and questions and things like that. Let me talk about a few topics real quick. And I'm sorry, I didn't really ask you my question of the day. I wanted to ask you. So I've been recording this podcast with my friend Mitchell called Positively Board Gaming. Positively Board Gaming. We talk positively about some gaming related topic. Generally, it's something that we're just excited about at that time. And we both bring one different topic to the podcast. It's a 30-minute podcast. It's on my YouTube channel or our YouTube channel at Stonemaier Games. It's also available from wherever you listen to podcasts. I recommend listening on Overcast, which is my new podcast app of choice. But my question is there a topic that you would like us to cover on this podcast? Notably, we talk positively about things. We're not here to criticize, to review even, or to, especially not to talk negatively about something. But is there something that you think that we would be excited or enthusiastic or passionate to talk about, or a topic that you are excited or enthusiastic or passionate that we could talk about on the podcast? If there's any topic like that, let me know your thoughts on it. I have another big topic, but I might save it for a blog entry since we only have 10 minutes left. Other things I wanted to mention, I had a friend who's driving all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast, just kind of like a journey for the sake of going on a journey, which is kind of the point of Vantage as well. But this friend is driving mostly along Route 50, which is an older highway that goes through a lot of smaller towns, a lot more interesting scenery than some of the major highways that go across the U.S. And I think he's coming up on California soon. So I hope Bryce, I'm glad that Bryce was able to visit us for a little bit. We went out to dinner, had a nice, lovely chat on Sunday night with him and me and Megan. So that was a fun weekend thing. Also, we're enjoying talking about journeys. We're really enjoying the show Destination X, which many of you recommended as a show set in Europe. It's a reality competition show where the whole crux of the show is for competitors to guess where they are, which is kind of a fun puzzle for a reality show. My video this past weekend, what was the video this weekend? Oh, I did blog posts were about Rule Pop. Rule Pop is, I think, doing great things for those who are playing Vantage. It is an optional app that you can use to look up rules or even look up storybook entries. And I did a blog post about focus and trying to serve your audience, focusing on specific types of products that serve your audience. This is something that Cole Worley talked about on the Think Like a Game Designer podcast recently. What was the last thing? What was my video about it this past weekend? I don't remember, but I had a video this past weekend and it was about a topic. So let's see. I see Monkey Butler Labs commenting about tariffs. Just got billed $17 for a tariff fee for a warranty part, $3 tariff on the, yeah. So if you ship something, if you order something from China individually and ship it from China, there is a tariff on that as well. I actually, though, that is the only part of this that I think is actually a good thing. And I know it isn't good for you. I know that is not fun for you to have to pay that extra cost. But there are companies like Temu that I don't think are great for the U.S. economy in general. Not great for commercialism in general. And so the tariffs closed a loophole that allowed companies like that to avoid tariffs. And that's like the one good thing that I think could come out of this. But the blanket tariffs, I do not see as a good thing at all. Kenneth says, what are the margins like in the industry? In other words, what kind of volume do you need to be able to make a living doing what you do full time? Kenneth, that's a great question. So if you have the time, look up the article I wrote called The Math of Tariffs, because it actually goes a lot into the margins and what the margins look like, not just for us as a publisher, but also for retailers and distributors. As for what I specifically do full time, so I run a game company. I'm also a game designer. I don't earn any royalties from the games that I design because that's part of my job at Stonemaier Games. But most game designers earn a royalty based on revenue earned by their game. I have a salary. I just have a salary paid by Stonemaier Games. To do what I do, I don't know. You just have to. That's a tough question to answer. I would say for the game design perspective, it is very difficult to make a living being a game designer unless you have a massive hit or you are incredibly prolific at making games that consistently do pretty well. I think it's very difficult to do that. As for running a game company, there's also a lot of risk involved in that. I don't know if there's an exact number that you need to make. It's just you have to work the math backwards. What is the salary that you need to make to live your life the way that you want to live it, and can you sustain that based on how your company, whatever it's making, is doing? It's a good question, but it's a big question. It's a hard one to answer, I would say. Oh, Nicole says, has anyone asked about the sweet treat of the day, my chocolate of the day? Nicole's sweet treat has been Saskatoon berries. Ooh, that sounds delicious, Nicole. Perhaps a little bit healthier than my sweet treat of the day, which is Kvik Luns, which means quick lunch, I believe, in Norwegian. This is one of the treats that we brought back from Norway, and it's essentially a Kit Kat. But Megan and I did a taste test recently of this compared to Kit Kat, and we found, even though both were solid, I would gladly eat a Kit Kat. But if I had the choice, I would choose the creamy, smooth milk chocolate found in a Kvik Luns. I would choose this. Also, this is reminding me that the Disc Golf World Tournament, it's called Worlds, the biggest tournament of the year for disc golf, is happening right now in Finland. if you are curious about disc golf at all and you want to see something that is really, really intense and entertaining and just incredible to see what people can do with a little piece of plastic across hundreds of feet, check out the disc golf worlds on YouTube. You can watch it on Jamey Pro, does really good kind of longer recaps of what happened, as well as the disc golf, the PDGA, Pro Disc Golf Association, PDGA. Look up that on YouTube for shorter daily recaps of it. But it is, as someone who plays disc golf, I'm really entertained by it. But I think that if you're disc golf curious, I think you might find yourself a little bit entertained as well. And it's, yeah, the course is beautiful in Finland too. It's 2 different courses. The Champion Factor says, I'm excited to attend my first design day in October. I'm excited to see you there and play some new designs. What stage of design development can I expect from the various games played there? We require all games that show up at design day to have been play tested at least a few times. We don't want, like, no game is going to work well the first time it gets to the table. So we really ask designers to get their game to the table at least a few times. Typically, people are hoping that their games, I think, will go over well at design day. So they have worked on them quite a bit. But they still, there's still plenty of room. We do ask for games to be like not final, that there actually is room for them to hear and listen to and apply the feedback there. So I think you'll see some pretty solid games there that just have a little bit of room for improvement. The Infinite Dude says, what, if any, rolling right game designs mechanisms have you been interested in which you feel would not fit into Rolling Realms? I mean, there are quite a few. Rolling Realms is by design a game that spans infinitely by any player count. It has no interaction. Basically, that's the point. It has no interaction by design as an asset for the game. And so there are rolling right games that I enjoy that do have some form of interaction. I just filmed a video about this. I'm gonna blank on it right now. But like games that have dice drafting involved in them, like Nirvana has some. Actually, does Nirvana have dice drafting? May not actually. There's some rolling right games that have dice drafting. I do enjoy that, and that would not work for a game like Rolling Realms. G-Money99 says, I just picked up Euphoria and played it a few times. Thanks for giving Euphoria a try. I love how I want to do everything in it, but just can't. A characteristic of a fun game. How do you balance that line? That is a great question. I'm glad you noticed that. I'm glad you enjoyed that. And actually, just the other day, I played a game. I wouldn't say the game, but I played a game where I felt like it was almost letting me do too much. And I wanted to look back on the game after playing it and feel like there were paths untaken. And so that is something that I just think a lot about in game design. I want to give players the experience of being able to complete some things or build some things that are important to them. In this case, a better dystopia. But I don't want them to be able to do all the things, because I like that feeling of thinking of looking back at the game and looking at the things that you could have done that you might want to do next time, or do them in a different order than the previous time. I think order of operations is also a big part of it. Jeff says, have I watched The Hobby yet? I have not watched The Hobby yet, but I definitely need to add that. I'm looking over my other screen. I need to add that to my movie list to watch. Julie says that her son Henry, hi Henry, wants to know if you remember all the cards in Vantage after working on it for 8 years, or are you surprised when you come across them and forget about them? I do forget about them. Yeah, I mean, I remember concepts about the cards, but and I appreciate anyone asking questions about cards to use the card number. That's a really easy way for me to look it up without actually spoiling anything for anyone else who's talking about the card. But no, like for example, Julie, the other day I played Vantage and I dropped in a part of the world where I knew there was something that I wanted to find, that I decided was important for me to go find. And I went and found that something, but I had forgotten some of the specifics about exactly where that thing was. And when I got the card for that thing, I had forgotten what exactly that card did. And that card actually evolved into something else, and I had forgotten what that card did. So Vantage is too big for me, even though I put everything into this game. It's too big for me to remember all that stuff in the game. And so I accomplished something that I wasn't sure would be possible, which is that I made a game that is almost infinitely replayable, even for me, even as the designer for the game, which I'm really happy about. I was a little worried at certain points in Vantage's design process that I would put all this work into the game and then I wouldn't get to explore it myself. But I just had a delight continuing to go on adventures in the Vantage planet. Okay, I see some topics here. Okay, I want to write these down. I'm about to end, so I'll come back after the podcast and write down these topics for our positively board gaming episode. I'm seeing them right now, and I appreciate them. Tiny Tactician says, "Are the My Favorite Mechanisms videos done on games you like a lot, or just something that caught your attention after a player overview of a game?" I've been doing these videos, I think, for about 8 years now, and I film them about every game that I play. My philosophy is that even if I don't enjoy a game, and I would say there are a lot of games that I play that I would not play more than once. But so even if it is that type of game, I can find something positive about it that I can take away from as a game designer and learn from, and share it with other game designers. Yeah. Paul says, what do you feel about companies like Temu keeping out of print games alive? So I'm pretty sure you're referring to Temu counterfeiting games, which I am definitely not a fan of. That is one of the other problems with Temu. And honestly, I don't think there's even any nuance there for the game being out of print. A counterfeit is theft. A counterfeit is counterfeit. Yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, Susanna. Yeah, Susanna says that her dad and her took Route 50 from St. Louis to Colorado in 2005 because we were intrigued by the idea of the loneliest road. That is, Bryce saw, I think he read a book called The Loneliest Road and was inspired to do this trip. Susanna says it was a great, relaxed trip. I love that your friend is driving the whole thing. That's wonderful, Susanna. I'll have to, because we did talk to Bryce about it quite a bit. I'll have to talk to you about that when you get back to St. Louis. I'm very curious to hear about that. Maybe compare your notes to Bryce's. Let's see. I see lots of podcast topics. I appreciate that. I'm going to scroll through. I know I'm about to end here. So Aaron says, were you the only or primary or only writer on Vantage? There's so much content. What was that work distribution like? I wrote, I'll say 98% of the words in Vantage. There were the only entries that I didn't write is that there were a number of depart entries that I kind of kept very simple. And was maybe, I don't want to say burnt out on, but I needed some help. Where a lot of the entries for move were like, this is a 5-cost move action. You are going to hike to the north, go to location 228. And that was all the text that I had for that entry. And late in the process, the people who were really passionate about the game, Garrett, Travis, Ryan, Josh, I think wrote some, pointed out that those entries didn't really add to the sense of narrative and adventure of Vantage. And I asked them if they would be willing to add like essentially one sentence each to talk a little bit about what you saw during that hike to the north. And so that is what maybe the 1% to 2% of the words in the game that I did not personally write were those adding a little bit of flourish to the depart entries, some of the depart entries. Derek says, as far as the party game submissions go, are you going to continue waiting for the perfect submission? We are, yeah. Or at some point, do you think you're going to move forward with the best one? I think we're going to wait for the perfect one. It has to be a game that I really, really fall for, that I feel really, really passionately for us to publish it. That's the case for any game, but especially this game, especially since it's a departure from the normal type of game that we make. And last, Chad says, at what point did you find the fun while designing Vantage? I mean, it was a fun design process, especially since a lot of it was world building and seeing art come from the artist and just getting excited about the art. When did I find the fun? I think because I realized the issue very early on, after I started actually playing it, of that I wanted players to be able to succeed with every action, but just have consequences based on what happened during that action. That clicked so early, and that made it fun almost immediately. So I found the fun a lot earlier than I expected with Vantage. Thank you all for spending the last hour with me. I really enjoy this time. I'm really grateful for this time. I love your questions. I love your answers. I look forward to going through and seeing the answers for the podcast episode. I'll do that after my lunch here. But yeah, thanks for your time today. I hope you have a wonderful week. And yeah, take care. Have a great Gen Con if you're attending Gen Con. And if you have any extra questions after this about the newsletter, about what we talked about today, feel free to ask in the comments on YouTube, and I will respond later. All right, take care. Enjoy your treat of the day. You deserve it. See ya.